Right. That's this is a really nice surprise. Welcome to November's Lean Agile Edinburgh. Whether it's a first time or your 30th time, it's great to have so many people here. There are lots of newbies, so if you're on your own here and it's your first time, you are not alone in that. So by all means, get stuck in, chat to folk, enjoy everything. There are more pizzas on its way. That's on me. I usually overestimate. This week I underestimated. We're going to have a couple of talks and then we'll have a break so that they'll all get brought out at that point. First things first, a few bits of housekeeping. Lean Agile Edinburgh is a community event. It's run by the community for the community, so we do have a code of conduct. It's up at the poster at the side there. It's available on our website. We do ask that people understand it when they sign up to what we're doing here, and it's the usual thing of be excellent to each other, because that's what makes these community events so great. Thanks to Nucleus for hosting tonight. Nucleus is one of our regular sponsors, providing the food and the drink. Exits. We actually have a weirdly announcements. I'm not sure how best to do this.
Delighted to be hosting Peter Russian. So Peter is
a great event. Pretty late, but if anyone is interested in product owner training, there are still a few places left on the product owner training next week, Monday and Tuesday next week, here in Edinburgh. Come speak to me if you want more information about that one. There's also a discount code for Lean Agile Edinburgh members. Something also about DevOps, also speak to me if anybody is involved in DevOps. We're looking for some DevOps contractors right now. And there was one other thing, Product Forge. Where's Product Forge? Alan, yeah.
Yes. So we're running a big digital health hackathon 20th of February next year. We bring together, sorry, it's been a long day. We bring together clinicians, data analysts who work in the NHS, software engineers, designers, and we spend 4 days developing, prototyping new digital health products. So if you're interested in digital health, come and say hello, and I can give you a discount to do that.
Okay. Apologies to anyone on the stream and watching the recording back for the silence here. But for everyone else here, come down and check out those announcements on the board as we go. Right, into the reason why you're all here today, the talks. So we've got 3 talks, all slightly different. It's all a bit of a common theme. So this is in response to some of the common discussions that we get at these events. So hopefully through the evening you'll get some great ideas to take back and try out in your own organisations. So first up we have Jo Martin.
Hello.
Jo's work focuses on people and change. And you're looking to answer the question, why is it hard for people to change their ways of working, and what can leaders do to help ease that transition? So put your hands together for Jo, please.
Thank you. So I'm Jo, I'm change manager. Predominantly I help organisations to restructure, and I help people to be okay going to work through those restructures. Mainly the reasons for efficiency, and there's a lot of worry around about that. And what I've found is that when people are going through a change, they tend to follow a pattern of ups and downs as they go through that change. And if you can recognise that pattern and understand that pattern, you can start to identify ways that you can help people through change. I was going to talk to you about an example from my work, but I've been through quite a lot of change myself recently, and what I found was it's really interesting to view it through a personal lens, to observe what's going on within yourself and to start applying that to what's going on with people who are going through organisational change. So I'm going to talk to you a bit about the personal change that I went through and my ups and downs through that, and then highlight some of those patterns and some of the things that we can do about those and make change easier for people. I did what any self-respecting person would do, and I wrote a to-do list. It's easy, yeah? I need to move flat, I need to get a job, I had to pay my taxes, because HMRC don't like it if you don't pay your taxes, and I decided at the same time that I would give a talk here, because why not, right? Let's challenge ourselves. Easy peasy, I've got a list of stuff to do, I'm winning, I'm going to be successful, I'm going to crack this, it's going to take me a few weeks, everything will be wonderful, won't it? No, no. So I spent September planning, procrastinating, wasting time, watching telly, thinking it was all going to be okay, and not really doing anything about that list, except for my taxes, because you've got to do your taxes, right? So October. Still got the same list, I've done my taxes. Yay, done my taxes. So I did my taxes and I found out that my tax bill was higher than it was going to be. So the money that I had in the bank wasn't going to last me as long as I thought it was going to last me. And I still didn't have a job, and I still didn't know what to do about moving into a cheaper place to live. Because if you haven't got a job, you haven't got a contract, you haven't got a good credit record, you can't get that cheaper place to live. So I had some urgency there. I was running out of money faster than I thought I was going to. So I focused on finding a job. I thought, if I get a job, I'll have a contract, I'll be able to move into a new flat. Still didn't really know what to do about finding a job, though, other than to network and do my very best to find one in quite a difficult market. So it's a bit of a tale of woe. That's how I felt. Despair. What on earth am I going to do? I had this panic. I was paralysed by fear. I knew I had a problem. I knew I had to do something about it. I spent quite a long time doing this. And I cried a lot. And then I had some good news. A friend of mine was moving to Dubai. He was leaving his flat behind. Could I look after it for the cost of the bills? I'd fixed one of my problems. Everything's fantastic, right? I've got somewhere to live. It's cheaper. It's nicer. It's closer to the airport. So when I find a contract, I can get to the airport really quickly. Way more comfortable. I was super happy. Super, super happy. For about 2 days. And then I realised I had a deadline, because I'd committed to him to move into his flat on a particular day and start paying his bills from a particular day. I needed a project manager, and luckily I have an inner project manager. My inner project manager wrote a really long list of things to do. And I planned and I planned and I planned, and I had all these things I've got to do to move flat. I was determined. That's my little determined project manager there. Everything written down. I knew exactly what to do, when I needed to do it. Action. Yeah, going to do it. I really was going to do it. But it's not that simple. And things rarely ever go to plan. And when things don't go to plan, you tend to stick your... Had a friend. My friend watched from a distance, saw when he needed to intervene, remind me of why I'm doing this. Hey Joe, you're running out of money, right? You've got to do something about it. Help me plan, prioritise, work out a plan B so that if I did fail at something, it wasn't such a big stress. Listen to my woes, fed me alcohol, encouraged me not to give up, celebrated success. I couldn't have done it without that friend. And that's a key learning for me in change. But I'm talking to a room of Agilists, aren't I? So I'm not talking to life coaches. So how does this apply to what you guys do and what you're interested in? Change is everywhere and it happens all the time. And it doesn't matter what kind of change it is, whether it's positive, negative, welcome, not welcome, small, large, middle-sized. People tend to react in the same way. And some people get there faster than others, but generally they will tend to react in that same chaotic way. And you'll be familiar with things like team change, so people moving in and out of teams, work coming into the team, work going back out of the team, starting and stopping work, organisational change, so maybe there's a leadership change or maybe there's a restructure outside of your area and it impacts your area. There might be a change in business.
But it's constant, right? And the reason we're calling this out is very straightforward. That could be man or woman. Their large business, which was set up pre-digital, is being disrupted. And they have two very, very simple, very clear challenges. And they usually focus on the first one, which is how do I become relevant? Well, that's not actually the goal. The goal is to keep relevant. There's no point in taking 18 months to get a product out there and not be able to evolve it. 18 months is too long. Get and keep relevant. So if I wanted to do that, this is where I start to explain the whole Agile thing. I might go and assemble a crack team of people from various parts of my business. I might put them in a little team, and I might ask them to not do anything else but to find out what works in that marketplace. Very, very simple. Don't do anything else. Don't worry about budget. Don't worry about hiring. Don't worry about process. Find what works, what's consumable, and what will people advocate for. Does it make money? And whatever you do, keep going, right? Never do it. Never fire and forget. It's always little and often. Now, you're doing this because you're bricking yourself, because you're in the marketplace. You're a really big fish in the marketplace, and you're being nibbled away by all these competitors, all these upstarts, not startups, upstarts. And they are eating the most valuable bits of your business, right? And they're disappearing from your view. Because you have acted like this, because your team's acted like this, if you look at the slug trail of the scope of their work, you might find that they have tried something, thought it was going to work, tried something a bit different. Oh, hang on a minute. We've got two options here. We might try two things, knowing that we're going to discard one and carry on with the other one. Very much an emergent way of working. Some people might say they're making it up as they go along, and they are consciously. And because they need to change this regularly, they may design their code base in a way that it's easily and cleanly changeable, deployable. You know when you've broken it, who broke it, etc., etc. And you automate that so it ran really quickly. Because you want to change the damn thing really quickly, not because it's the latest practice and you want to attract staff. And you would fully expect this team to use whichever tools they wanted, right? Whichever tools they wanted. In fact, they'd probably follow in the market to see what latest tools are. And they would try different tools. They'd change their mind, throw tools away. They would never be constrained by a central group provisioning tools, ever. That's like challenge accepted. And these people, when they come into work, have a different experience on the Monday morning because they're actually achieving things. They're actually working with customers. They're seeing the fruits of their labour. They're not working for the man or the woman. They're actually working for the customers. It's almost like therapy. It doesn't happen very often in enterprises. So this is a big picture. Let's have a look at this quickly. So, as I say, I don't usually show a client this, like this, Jack and Ori story time sort of thing, okay? So I've categorized the steps. This is going somewhere, bear with me. This is agility in the context of what I think is the highest frame of reference, which is the market, right? Companies exist to make stuff for people to buy. Anything else, and you're fooling yourself, right? Because of the market, you have this mindset. And because of this mindset, you would take this approach. And these things here that we think are techniques that you train in and they're really important are actually resultant behaviours of trying to get and keep relevant. Right, so this is the context for doing anything down here. This is important. So how do I, right, so one last thing I want to call out. Those of you who like to spend their time reading the Agile principles and manifesto, the values, you know, that's a principle. That's a principle. That's a technique. That's probably a value, a couple of principles. That's a principle. These are outcomes. We're not asking anyone to do them. We have to do them because our business is being disrupted. You wouldn't do them otherwise. When I speak with leaders, so there are 3 leaders that I've worked with, all taller than me and quite intimidating people. And the reason I say that is because they're employing me. They're ultimately paying me and can sack me. My job is to tell them about something which they're used to telling people what to do. They're used to knowing more than just about everyone around about them. And you have to win their trust to the point that they're going to listen to you. How are you going to influence them? So usually in the first couple of meetings, their improvement plan will come out. I'll ask what the improvement plan is. Russell, can you help us shift testing to the left? We should get that printed out and laminated and just hand it out liberally because everyone wants to do it. Okay? Why do you want to shift testing to the left? I've got more notes here than I can remember in my puny little brain. So cost can be one reason. We want to release more. Why do you want to release more? Because business have asked us. But you're only releasing into the route to live. You're not actually giving it to anyone. So now you've got cost left. Do the business want you to do this? This is going to be expensive. Do the business want you to, do they want the team not to be developing features and to spend time working on code and writing test framework? No, they don't. And IT don't know how to convince the business. Because the business aren't trying to solve the problem. They're trying to ship features. It's a feature factory, right? Russell, velocity is a problem for us. We rarely achieve 80% of our target velocity. Okay, well, the idea is that it's a cadence and it's sustainable. Velocity isn't about speed, it's an absolutely poorly named thing. It's just a cadence, if anything, going to be going slower, not faster. But worse than that, if you're asking people to make stuff up, try things, and discard things, then how can you ask them to deliver a number of widgets in a period of time? You can't. You're only encouraging them not to throw anything away, but to commit to their plan and follow it through and to hell with the consequences, right? So it doesn't work. So by this time, we've got 2 runs on the board, okay? We've got 2 things that usually come up. It's usually in a plan. There's usually been a consultant from one of our competitors in before me, and there's a plan. These 2 things are always on it. Russell, you're a supplier. Can I have 7 Scrum teams next week, please? Right? I've only got 3 in the business that have a really, really big backlog. Okay. Can I see the backlog, please? Why do you need to see the backlog? Because I'd quite like to see what's on it and how big these things are, right? I'd like to understand what can be delayed, very simple. Can you introduce me to your business stakeholder? Oh no, can't do that. Do you ever speak to your business stakeholder? Yes, in program board meetings. This is a standard pattern when you have IT owning IT, okay? It takes me 3 to 6 months to get a decent team up and running, okay? You are going to have to prioritize what you want the resource that you have to work on. Very straightforward. And also, this is strike 3. We've already got 2 strikes on the board here, remember? You haven't got 1 team working well. Why would you want to double, triple the size of your operation. There's something fishy here. So just checkpoint. So we've covered frame of reference. Agility is an outcome of bricking yourself because you're getting disrupted in the marketplace. You're being asked by somebody who's paying you to help do some of the things that a consultant's told them what to do, and they don't fit within this very, very simple model. You end up here. So this is a even higher level abstraction of everything that I've just showed you, okay? This is a Mickey Mouse, 30,000 foot view. Market, this is a brain, not the cloud. Market drives mindset, makes you take an approach, and because of that, you have resultant outcomes. Okay. And usually, the leader, if they're savvy, has started to invite less and less of their management team to the meetings with them at that point, because they've realised where this is going. They're being found out slowly that they're focusing on the right-hand side. They're trying to achieve some of the things over here without triggering them at all. So they're trying to implement process, implement some of the technologies, and they wonder why it's not happening. I understand why they do that. IT owns this side of the playing board. That's great. It's easy for them to make change in their world, right? I understand that. You can measure it. Everyone likes to measure things. What gets measured gets managed. Really? And it's visible. And you can pay consultancies to come in and train your staff, and we're all good, right? But the reality is, these are local system changes. You're not going to achieve very much. It's an absolute, I'm going to swear there, it is such a large amount of effort needs to be applied to achieve the kinds of things that they're being asked to do for very little return. And it's stress for everyone involved. So, okay, Russell, what can we do? Well, how about we go and speak to your business peer and we go through all this again, right? And it's okay, they'll know less than you, trust me. I'll do it with them separately, and then we'll inch our way back together, then we'll work out what to do about it. And by that time, they probably worked out that they're not the actual sponsor for any change, nor is the business. It needs to be somebody above, and I'm engaged at the wrong level, and that's where we end up. This is where you become and keep relevant. This is where you're effective. And my question to you guys, I guess, is where do you see yourself? I'm not going to ask for a show of hands. Where do you see yourself spending your time? Because I know that I spent over 10 years, on the right-hand side of that, propping up that very regime that I now understand is, once you realise, once you've taken the blue pill or the red pill, whichever it is, it's not a waste of time. There is value there. But without triggering it on the left-hand side, it's an uphill battle which isn't really going anywhere. So that's where I want to leave it. Thank you very much. That's my talk. Questions? Questions?
Where do you find the typical first bottleneck to be?
Thinking on my feet, that assumes that it's a process issue. In terms of a barrier, the place where you engage leader-wise usually isn't the person that's going to be able to sponsor any change, because they're usually doing what they're told. You can go 3 levels up, you can go to the chief executive, and they're probably doing what the market demanded them do as well. So they're your blockers there. But it's the understanding of this and the self-awareness of this that is the real clincher, because IT is always under pressure from business. They're always under pressure from the board. And nobody wants to let on that they don't know what this stuff is. So that's the constraint we have in Galway. experience. Yes.
Is that your experience generally with the IT businesses only, or technology across the board, all sorts of different businesses that they struggle to sort of identify where the bottleneck is, whether it's on the market side or it's on the implementation side?
So I've predominantly worked in banks. I've worked in 2 product companies now. And they do better because they were born, one was born digital, one's quite old and kind of struggled. But they hire a lot of new people in from the product world, and the product world's quite good. Product community's quite good at understanding this space. I'm going to talk afterwards. It's going to be interesting because that's the other side of the problem. You know, you get a team of people who only understand this space and think this is just something we do afterwards, and it's absolutely not. You know, it's all of it together at the same time. So product companies fare better. Banks fare a lot worse because of the legacy. You know, huge legacy systems, legacy culture of how people get work.
Right.
20 years in bank. You know,
I would agree with that as well, because I come from the technology sector, and I have rarely seen any company going into implementing something unless they have a very clear market route. So all the ideas normally originate from a research and the market and the valuation of the product before they even consider bringing about any change.
yeah, so
Unless it's a process-based change which can come anytime.
so actually the most agile industry that I've ever worked in is video games. And that was actually pre-social payment. So they properly let the programmers design things and try things with users. They built live code, give them focus tests, and based on what would work, they would develop whole areas, whole new games, whole new downloadable content, and the whole business was driven off it. Microsoft was really great at supporting that. They really understood that it was very much a user-pooled market. The days of just building something and marketing the hell out of it, you have to spend 50 million in marketing, just take 50 million back kind of thing. And so as soon as you get user advocacy going, things started.
Yeah.
But to have a team do that, you know, have a team of 20 people, to go and make stuff up because their game is dangerous on the market. Yeah, so that's the closest I've got. I've seen. Sorry, any more questions? Hey.
Hi, really quick one. I'm really totally new to the world of Agile, so much that I actually don't even work in Agile yet at all. But are we looking at the mindset element as what would be known as the constraint of that model, that process? As in, the more limited the mindset, you are essentially limiting the potential of the outcome.
So this is like the left hand and right hand side of the brain kind of problem.
Yeah.
You've got business product on one side, IT and delivery on the other side. They own the budget, they decide how to spend it. They try and keep them honest and chase them, and they never take any risk, and they only ever try and deliver on time and budget.
Right.
So, can an organisation think like this? No, if you have separate business and IT departments.
Okay.
Absolutely not. So that's absolutely one defining factor, and that's why you see so much value stream reorganisation happening. It causes mass carnage, but it's a necessary evil. It has to happen. Unite the clans.
Okay. So thank you. And to jump in this now. So thank you, Russell, for that useful tool. It's always good to see something which can have a sort of reflection, just keeping the right track. I think visual tools are always really useful. Reaches a lot more people. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to take a very quick break just now, about 10 minutes, and the pizzas are about to flow down the stairwell for anybody. Okay, so we swapped over on the lecture mics now, so we'll see. We go with that on for the last talk with Michael Haley. Last talk, Michael's a UX consultant and host of the UX TV podcast. You're going to show us what developers and designers can learn from each other, work together to meet organisation and user needs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks everyone for staying. First thing I'm going to check is that you can hear me. Back, Marty. Good. And thanks for being allowed to speak here today. I'm really grateful to Richard and Stephen and for Nucleus. This is a great building, and since I've been in here, you know, they've really made me feel welcome, and they've provided great facilities for us all to have events like this. Also to the other speakers who I will be taking a lot of learnings from as well. Thank you. So I like this picture. That's me in the middle. And I've done a lot of things in my career. One of them was organize an arts festival using an agile way of working. I've worked for international companies, and I've had my own startup. I've had investment. I've done everything in between. But I don't want to go on about my career. I want to ask some important questions. If you've come here for answers, you might be disappointed. I'm definitely going to ask some questions, and I think that's important. This was one that I find interesting. What is a cross-functional, multidisciplinary team? And within that, I would ask too, how are you as a team member cross-functional and multidisciplinary? Could we be more multidisciplinary? Are we stuck to our own ways? Are we not open to change? Is that me that the screen from? No. Is Agile a 2-week sprint? It often seems like it is. What are devs? In Scrum, we're told devs are the team, but then we confuse ourselves by saying that who are devs? You know, we have back-end devs, so sometimes that can be confusing as well. What is Agile? I think we all need to go back and ask ourselves, what is it every now and again? This isn't a question, you know, this isn't philosophical. Who are we? Why are we here? I wanted to gauge the room. Who here would describe themselves as technical, working in the technical side of things? Hands up as high as you can. I want to get a good idea of the audience. And then who here would say they're on the management side of things? And then who would say they're on the design or UX? So I'm pretty sure that they're the smallest number here. Obviously, when we talk about Agile, we talk a lot about the management of it, the delivery of it, and this is where I was asking the question about the devs, is, you know, why in an Agile team, the devs are everyone. They're the designers, they're the testers, and sometimes I think we forget that when we're working through things. So there's a little equation that I've been playing around with recently to try and surmise what are we trying to get at. Because for me, some of the things we need to consider are rooted in culture. So how do we get the culture that we want? How do we get a culture where people are cross-functional, multidisciplinary, willing to change, working towards change, working to deliver value for the customer, for the user, for the stakeholders, for the organization? And this is what I've come up with. It's our values, shared values. Agile has values, we know those, plus community equals that culture. By the way, this is all just my musings. If any of you want to debate it afterwards or have your comments, please, at the end, chip in. So how do you build community? what do you do to build community? Well, I came to Edinburgh 2.5 years ago, and one of the things I was conscious of, because I like to use Maslow's hierarchy of needs as the basis for my progression and professionally and personally. So I knew I needed to be part of the community. So I went out to the community. I went to meetup groups, went to lots of meetup groups. I got so addicted to meetup groups that one night I went to a meetup group for American expats. I've never even been to America. Exactly. They were very welcoming. So I got to see, and I really wanted to see, how do you be part of this community? I came to this group as well. But one of the things I started to realize was that I maybe lean more into the UX side of things, into the design thinking. And I have to give credit to two people in particular, hope they'll not mind me saying, is from the Edinburgh UX meetup group, Mike Jefferson. And one of the things I'd say about what Mike provided was creating community isn't just about getting people eating pizza and drinking beers and listening to people tell you what they think about life. Creating community is about socializing. And Mike's very good at creating an opportunity for people to socialize with each other. In fact, so I think that's important. And sometimes it's often forgotten when we're trying to build, whether that's a community in our professional lives or within our organizations. And Marty Dunlop too, who I was speaking at an event last week, is another one of these sort of UX geniuses out there who is not only committed to his own professional development, but is very committed to helping the UX community in Edinburgh and wider achieve. Similarly, Lean Agile, Edinburgh is here trying to bring the Agile people together so they can share ideas. I think this is really, really important. What we want to avoid, though, is things becoming buzzwords. UX is in danger of becoming just another buzzword as it really enters our lives. I think now is the time where it is converging, and particularly with Agile and with how are we getting things done. Where does it sit? I'm going to tell you two stories now that I hope illustrate some what's good and what's bad. So during my career, I worked for a company called Konica Minolta, and I was based in London, and I looked after the UK and Ireland's digital space, so their websites, etc. And I saw an opportunity there that really digital was at its infancy. They had been doing things in a traditional way. This was around about 2001, just to give you an idea. And I saw a big opportunity and actually wrote a strategy for them to how they could deliver their digital strategy across the wider field. And I sent that off to the head of the UK. But I also thought I need to get the attention of the head of EMEA, which is a Japanese guy called Kanji Wada. And I thought, what can I do? So I used to do a lot of animated GIFs, and animated GIFs are sort of coming back into fashion now. But at the time, I took the logo, and unbeknownst to me, I says, I'll take this logo, it's sort of a circle. I says, I'll have the circle come up, and then it'll turn into a full circle. And I'll just do that. And what I'll do is, I'll come up with a spurious reason to email this head of the company. But I'll put that in the footer, and I'll make the email really short so he definitely sees it. Okay? So I sent this email off, and he gave me a very polite reply to my email, whatever the question was. I can't remember what it was. But he also wrote, love the footer. I want everybody in EMEA to have this footer. The reason I'm telling that story is because it's about building trust. And one of the things that Mike and the communities do here is they build trust between each other. Before you can get trust, sometimes even with your users, before you get that opportunity, sometimes you have to get the trust of your senior stakeholders. You have to get them to believe in something that you're capable. That email and the strategy and the combination of those two gentlemen took me to the Netherlands to roll out a digital strategy across the region, across all sectors, working in the Netherlands with UK, Germany, France, working with our parent company, Minolta in Germany, and seeing things that I delivered copied around the world on other sites. And that was the greatest compliment you can get, as you know. So that was, by the way, at that time, I had no idea what Agile was. I'd never heard of it. It wasn't part of my degree. Maybe we touched on it, but I wasn't thinking in an Agile way. I wasn't trying to implement an Agile strategy. But I think you can agree it was an Agile strategy. It was about getting trust. It was about getting, doing things in an iterative way, because there was no way. I had very limited resources. There was me, and then there was a small team built around me. But we had very little resources compared to what I see in teams now. And we achieved an awful lot in a short space of time. We definitely, during that time, I definitely engaged a lot with users to try and understand what their needs were and reflect that in what we were doing and keep the stakeholders up to date. Because we had such a small team, we were very cross-functional, we were very multidisciplinary. So now to a different story, more recently. I needed to change a standing order at my bank. Sounds simple. But I took out the app and I went onto the app and it said, authenticating device. Okay, it's authenticating my device. It's got my ID in there, great. I just have to remember the memorable word and the digits. It wants 3, 7, and I got through that, great, fantastic. Don't use this app very much to do many changes. Don't have to change standing orders very often. Got into the app finally got into the app. Wanted to change the amount. It wanted a password. Okay, and I didn't remember what my password was. I had it written down in code, so I went, oh, I know what it is, but I don't know which is uppercase and which is lowercase, but I'll give it a go. I should figure it out within a few goes. Within a few attempts, the message that came up on the screen, and I wish I'd captured it, was saying, one more try, and you're locked out. Okay, I only want to change the standing order, right? So, and I went, I'll not do that. I'll go on my laptop, and I'll do it there, because my laptop's easier. I'll figure it out there. I went onto the laptop, and I realized that, so on the laptop, it needed a username and a password. So anyway, I don't want to labour this point, but there was, apart from the messages being inaccurate, and then when I called support and I explained to them, I said, look, I'm having this problem. They said, okay, no problem. But before we get started, we'd like you to give us a password for this call in case we get cut off. So we had I think 5 security elements, and as well as authenticating the device. Is that Agile? You know, where was the commitment from people? So, sorry, this is a picture just of one of the screens. It says, sorry, we are having technical problems. I try again, kept doing this. So not only did the system not work, that I couldn't change it because there were so many authentication needed. The copy was wrong. There was some of the errors were coming up with 976253 error. You know, so there's a litany of mistakes that were happening. And then when I phoned the customer service to get this sorted out, they wanted to complicate things even more. So I definitely don't think that this is where we want to be. And what can we learn from that? So as I said, you know, for me, that wasn't what we aspire to. Working software, fully tested, releasable code. Well, someone approved it, that it was fully tested and releasable, because it went out. But, you know, I think a lot of the problems are then just being migrated over to customer service, and now they have to come up with their own processes to deal with that until they do another digital transformation and change project. So, and also I think, you know, in this, the core values, you know, where was the commitment from people to make sure that the user was at the heart of what they were doing? Where was the courage for them to speak up? And this is from my experience in organizations I've been in and seeing the result. I'm not saying this happens in every organization. And also I'm not saying it's easy in organizations to be have the courage and the commitment to stand up. But I think as a community, we can maybe try to help each other and support each other in that endeavour. So also, I thought, this is again from my experience, you can agree or disagree. It's a little bit about, what other things have I seen that I think we can, what went well, or more importantly, or more accurately, what went wrong. Creating assets that are not needed, how-to guides. User engagement, is the user engagement happening at all? When is it happening? Is it happening early enough? Who's involved in the user engagement? I'm not, this was a conscious thing to come and speak to a more technical group, because I think you guys have a big part to play in that. You are a critical element of making sure that the user's put at the centre, and that you are also requesting that, not just the UX people. Stakeholder engagement, similarly, are their expectations being met? Are they able to see things? In a project I worked on recently, they didn't get sight of anything for so long that they then banging on the door, we need to see something. What they saw, I could see from knowing how technically demanding it was to create it, was brilliant, genius. But because they were more concerned with how the UI was going to look when they got it, and they'd sort of deferred that work for too long. So again, this created problems, basically missed deadlines, milestones, delays, which equal, additional costs that the company doesn't want. But also it demotivates people. So again, and where was the cross-functional team? And then to a more minor point, which I like to debate all the time, how long are sprints? Are they in line with the release cycle? Or are they even in line with the governance? So here's some suggestions that I have. Sorry, tap that. Here's some suggestions around things that maybe we can think about. I would like to see more engagement-led work. And I guess this is really the problem space, where we think a lot more and we try to use prototyping and sort of UI designs, and maybe even get the front-end devs and people involved in modelling things before we even build the whole thing. So we can engage with people, with the users, with the stakeholders as early as possible. And again, to try and make everyone in the team part of that. Maybe we need to build out the team instead of just, starting with 10 people who've maybe worked together and maybe not even worked together before. So maybe we need to think about that top level, product owner, UX lead, Scrum Master, Agile coach, or some combination of those. Could be one person, could be two, could be three, whatever works. But for them to get together and start to plan together before they're maybe given a little bit of a head start, and then again back into the UI design, prototyping. Maybe then involve the testers and QA. I just feel they get a hard time, They're always left at the end. Maybe it would be nice to include them a bit earlier, and actually even on a part-time basis, so that they get a little bit ahead of the curve. Because I think if they're brought in too late, then they're already, fighting battles before they've even turned up. And then bring the developers in. And, particularly because developers are some of the brightest, best, but also some of the most expensive parts of that team. So, and they're already busy, they're already in high demand. So maybe it's about, time that we kind of delayed bringing them on board until we have enough engagement that has gone on to enable them. And then content designers, the copywriters, etc., because then that's when you're fine-tuning what you've got. And just to remember about, form and storm, and that every time we go into one of these, that we're going back to the start and being conscious of that. Another one for me is utilising the existing information fully. Again, I'm all for going out and interviewing users and customers and all that, but some of it exists. You can go to your customer service team and get the complaints, and that would be a start. So it's just really a reminder to do that. Or even go to the reviews on your competitors' sites and see what insights you can get from that. And again, remember I'm talking multidisciplinary, cross-functional. Developers can go and get that and bring those points of view to the team. And again, it's keeping that user engagement throughout, whatever that is, keeping that going. But this is the key, balance in the teams. we don't have balance here. This is an agile meetup, you know, and I get that, why it's come to this, why it's evolved like that. But right now, you know, if there isn't that balance between particularly the designers, the design thinking and the UX, you know, we're maybe going to end up with systems that people are getting frustrated with. By the way, I think what happens in these systems too is that everybody disperses as soon as the project's over. They run away from it as quickly as they can, and then it even makes it hard for the company to maintain it. So again, back to this idea, agile versus UX. I kind of wanted to put up like, you know, Mordor, or, you know, like a big war scene up here, you know, to get us all rallied up, you know, and get the blood going with the technical people and say, oh yeah, we're going to take on the UXers. But that's not what I'm really talking about, as you've maybe gathered. What I'm talking about is, you know, a collaboration of people. These are very familiar with this. This is, you know, basic Scrum principles, Scrum flow. And you're maybe less familiar with this because it's not widely maybe distributed. This is my new favorite. I love like Scrum.org and the Scrum Guide. I love Agile Manifesto. I love that it's just, those things are like very short documents and you can read and reread and learn them. And this for me is the next evolution. This comes from the Usability and User Experience Qualification Board, UXQB, who started out in Germany. And this is the CPUX, the Certified Professional UXer, of which I'm one. And this is their sort of overview of, you know, what you're doing. This is kind of the preparation, the problem space stuff, doing some of these activities. And just to answer the question, for me, this is only my perspective, this is where the sprint fits within that then. Part of the team all work together in this space, which is what we're trying to do anyway, but we're just saying maybe we need to spend a little bit more time. And even with this example, I think, you know, it's very easy. We have research, plan, do, learn. But I think the ends of this is where we're maybe we're not maybe investing a little bit enough time in the research space, the problem space, and we're not spending time learning, even as a community. So UX is agile, agile is UX. It's not a war that we need to fight, thank God. And this is my favorite slide. I thought I'd throw it in here because I think it's always fun to read out. UX is like a joke. If you have to explain it, it's not very good. And so what's next? I mean, with all this talk of UX, I think this is how I feel. This is actually to represent a festival of UX. What were you thinking? Festival of UX, hopefully in 2020 in Edinburgh. We're putting things together. Trying to make it about community again. Looking at maybe someone from Bhutan, if we can get them secured, to come over to talk about how they measure their success through happiness rather than profit. I think that's something we can take to all levels of what we're doing. And I think we're maybe going to call it measuring happiness, but you can't really measure happiness, but it's at least, you know, we have to try. And so if you want any more information, as they said at the start, you can find a little bit more on this platform. Thank you. Oh, yeah, does anybody have any questions? I love questions at the end of things. I think they're usually very personal, and I think they should be done after the event. But go on ahead, let's have a question. No?
Sort of a question, but I thought it was quite interesting, really interesting presentation actually, and really personal. But the word art that you gave right at the beginning about Agile, I think probably I looked at it and went, yeah, it's all Agile. But customer was completely missing from it, and once you started speaking about various things, I totally realised that was missing, and I think that is often the case, that we do Agile to deliver business goals, to meet the sales targets or whatever it might be, and the sight of the customer sometimes gets lost, which is a real shame.
Yeah, and you're maybe relying on a persona that's sitting on a shared drive somewhere that you've got to rely on. I'd love to see, you know, that's what I'm saying, I think, you know, I'd like to see more technical people out spend time with customers too. Anything else?
It's less of a question, I was curious about something. You can go back to the slide, I think it's called Build Out the Team. Could you go back to that slide?
Okay. put it up so quick that you wouldn't ask me to do that. You know? So don't ask me to confirm it. Yeah. So yeah.
I was just curious about, so you had sort of content designers down at the end in terms of the steps of the process, but
Yeah.
you would typically be designing around the content for it to be effective. So what were you thinking?
I think you can reach a level of competency before you need to fine tune it. That's what I'm getting at. You know, I think.
But they would be involved earlier because ideally they'd be involved in step 2, right?
As I say, I think you can find a level of competence before you need to, you know, to get into it. But absolutely, you know, I mean, this is only a suggestion. You know, I'm just
No, I was
saying.
just curious.
I think as a team member, literally, this is what I would say is like, look, you get those top people together, right, and they set a roadmap, and then you get these people in to actually start prototyping something, and whoever needs to be involved in prototyping that. And for me, the copy and things like that don't have to be perfect at that stage. So there's not a necessity, but whereas they're here then to go, they're there to perfect it, make sure that, you know, those things are you know, well presented. But again, this is just a suggestion.
As a dev, I thought it was instructive how far back the devs were in your list, really.
I know!
Yeah, because
Why would I do that to you?
could have been your UX designer.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah, in my
Do you
experience,
think
the devs quite often have to be the interface between the testers and the designers, because, or the business, because the stories are usually not expressed in a way that people can test. They need to have someone actually go through the development process to explain to them what they're supposed to be testing.
It's a good point, you know. I think part of what I want to do is to challenge people to think about that relationship, and to also think about are the teams. I think the main thing is it's about cross-functional. How can you contribute? But also, I do feel that developers are very, very busy, and they're generally, you know, you want to bring them in at the right time. I'm not saying just, you know, bear in mind, like once things start rolling, you're all going to be working together. But also remember that in an agile team, everyone's supposed to have an equal voice and an equal say. And you know, if you're getting the example I give, which again, you know, not every organisation will be at that level, but the example I give, you know, I don't think the testers have an equal voice there. You know, I find that sometimes testers don't get to push back on things because they say, oh, we can do this, don't worry, we'll do it, we'll get it there. So yeah, it's definitely a big conversation. We can continue after we finish. Yeah, great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that is us for tonight. I found these talks really interesting. I think there's a great reminder there around something I don't think any Antos would disagree with. Feedback loops. Getting that feedback as early as possible is really valuable. Challenge yourselves. Are we actually getting those feedback loops from the right people? Do we need to think about going back to those principles and reminding ourselves of those, and reminding ourselves that it's all about change, and change can be difficult and scary and making you walk through the woods and everything else. So, big round of applause for all our three of our speakers tonight. Thank you. Now, it's a weird thing to say in the middle of November, but this is actually our last talk, our last session of 2019. We don't do meetups in the third week of December. Some people tend to be busy. So, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. We will be back in January, and our newest organiser, Suzanne, is going to be hosting that one. And are we set in the venue yet?
Nearly.
Well, keep an eye on the meetup page, and absolutely, if you've got a talk you want to bring to the group, you want ideas that you have and you want to share them and have some discussions, submit the talks to our meetup page. We want new voices, we want new ideas, reminding ourselves of where we're coming from, testing ourselves on where we're going, what can we get out of this. Community event coming up, we have Future of Work Scotland, we have Agile Scotland, we have the Calba product owner training, have a look at the board afterward. There's all sorts of things going on before the end of the year, so before we get to Christmas, because maybe jumping the gun a little bit. But thank you all for turning up tonight. Thank you all for making sure we're not left with too much pizza. We've got a little bit of time just to chat and have some networking, but enjoy the rest of your night.
Thank you.